The first thing I noticed about Liam when we started dating was how quiet his kindness was. Not performative, not the kind you post about, not the kind that comes with a scoreboard, just steady. The way he'd take my coat without making a big deal of it. The way he'd remember the exact way I liked my coffee, not because he was trying to win points, but because he listened. After my divorce, I'd promised myself I would never again confuse intensity with love or anxiety with chemistry. My ex-husband could fill a room with charm and still make me feel alone inside it. Liam was the opposite, calm, gentle, funny, in a way that didn't cut anyone down. The kind of man who could sit on the floor and build a Lego castle with my son Sammy and treat it like it was the most important meeting of his day. Sammy was 8 when Liam moved in with us, and that alone felt like a miracle. My kid had the kind of radar that can sniff out pretense from across a parking lot, and Liam never tried to be someone he wasn't. He didn't bulldoze his way into stepdad territory. He just showed up. He became the guy who knew which cereal box was Sammy's and which one was mine. The guy who always carried an extra hoodie in the car because I was perpetually underdressed for the weather. The guy who would rub the back of my neck when I was staring too long at my work email at night and say, "Come back to me," like my mind was a place he wanted to meet me, not control me. So when Halloween rolled around, I was feeling secure, like I could breathe, like I could be silly again without worrying someone would use it against me later. We had a party to go to, friends, a couple cousins, some extended family I actually liked. The rare mix of people where you don't dread the group chat. I'd been looking forward to it because it was the first time in a long time I didn't feel like I was dragging a reluctant partner through my life. Liam was game for anything that made me smile. "Let's go all out this year," I said one evening while we were cleaning up after dinner. Sammy was at the counter doing homework, tongue poking out in concentration, and Liam was drying plates. Like, not a last-minute plastic cape. I want a costume that actually looks good. Liam's eyebrows lifted. All out. Okay. Moderately sexy, I clarified, because I'm 42 and I've earned my relationship with the word moderately. But not wild. A witch, maybe. A nice dress. Boots. Something that says I could curse you, but I also pay my mortgage. Sammy snorted, and Liam laughed, that warm sound that always made my shoulders unclench. "I'll be whatever you want me to be," Liam said, easy as breathing. I held up a sponge like it was a microphone. "Whatever I want you to be?" He shrugged, almost shy. "Sure?" And I don't know what possessed me. Maybe the comfort, maybe the wine from dinner, maybe the fact that my whole adult life had been so serious. But I tilted my head and said, "As my sexy witch girlfriend's sidekick?" It was meant to be a joke, a throwaway. A little nudge at the edge of ridiculous. But Liam's face lit up like I'd just handed him a secret present. It was instant. A bright, unguarded flash of something like relief and excitement. Like he'd been waiting for that exact sentence and didn't know he'd been waiting. He said, "Yeah," quickly, then steadied his voice. "Yeah, sure." I blinked. The moment hung in the air longer than a normal joke. I watched him set down a plate, hands suddenly careful, like he was trying not to spill something. I felt a small, curious tug in my stomach. "Really?" I asked, keeping it light. Liam nodded. "Why not?" And because my brain is trained from years of walking on eggshells to scan for danger, it did a quick sweep and found none. Liam wasn't mocking. He wasn't uncomfortable. He wasn't testing me. He looked happy. So I let myself smile. "Okay," I said. "Then we're doing it." 2 days later, Sammy was with his dad for the weekend, and Liam and I went out to shop. We started at one of those big stores that always smells like new fabric and floral candles, the lights a little too bright, the aisles full of people pretending they aren't overwhelmed. I grabbed a few things, black dress options, a cape that didn't look like it came from a party aisle, a pointed hat that was more chic than cartoon. Liam followed me with that patient expression he gets when he's watching me get absorbed in something. He pushed the cart. He made commentary about hats. He was, on the surface, just being a good sport. But every now and then I'd glance at him and catch something else, an intensity in his attention when we walked past the lingerie section, a fraction too still. The way he swallowed once when I held up a pair of sheer tights and said, "These would be perfect," like he felt the words in his throat. I told myself not to make it a thing. People notice things for a million reasons. I was the one who'd made the joke. I didn't want to read into his reaction like it was a plot twist I was owed. We went to a second store, more upscale, dimmer lighting, silk blouses arranged like artwork. I found a black satin slip dress that looked exactly like the witch vibe I wanted. Sleek, simple, the kind of dress that could look elegant with a cape and sinister with a bold lip. I held it up against my body, already imagining the whole thing. "This," I said, satisfied. "This is the one." Liam's eyes flicked over it in a way that was almost reverent. On a whim, half teasing, half genuinely curious, I said, "You should try one too." He looked at me, expression blank and calm, and said, "Yeah, sure." Deadpan, no laugh, no hedging, like I'd asked him to try on a jacket. I felt my brain stutter. I managed. "Okay, do you want to?" He nodded. "Yes." "Which size?" he asked, matter of fact. I stared at him. The practicalities of the moment suddenly felt ridiculous, like my mouth didn't know what language to use. "Whatever the biggest is," I said finally, because it came out before I could filter it. He didn't flinch at that, didn't bristle, didn't make it about masculinity or ego. He just took the dress from my hands with care, and walked toward the fitting rooms. I followed, my heart doing that quick, weird gallop it does when something is happening and you don't know what it means yet. He handed the dress to the attendant, got a key, and stepped into the dressing room. The door closed behind him. A small click, silence. At first, I thought he was changing. I stood outside, fiddling with the strap of my purse, listening to the muffled sounds of the store, hangers clinking, a child whining, someone laughing at a register. I waited for the rustle of fabric, the sound of him clearing his throat. Anything. Nothing. "Liam," I said softly, leaning toward the door. "You okay?" Still nothing. I felt my chest tighten, the way it does when a room shifts. "Babe," I tried again. "Do you need help with the zipper or—" And then I heard it, a sound that didn't belong here, not in a store with silk and mannequins and quiet music. A raw, broken sob. My whole body went cold for a second. I pressed my palm to the door. "Liam, hey, it's okay. Open the door, please." Another sob, louder, like he was trying to swallow it and failing. I'd never heard him cry. Not like this, not like something had cracked open. "Let me in," I said, voice firm now in that way it gets when something matters. "I'm not leaving you in there alone." A pause, a shuddering inhale, then the lock clicked. The door opened a few inches, and Liam's face appeared. Red around the eyes, jaw clenched, like he was trying to hold himself together with muscle. I stepped in quickly and closed the door behind me. The fitting room was small, lined with mirrors that made everything feel multiplied. Liam was standing there, fully dressed still, not in the dress, just holding it in both hands like it was something fragile and heavy at the same time. His shoulders were shaking. "Oh, honey," I breathed, and I reached for him without thinking. He folded into me like his body had been waiting for permission. I hugged him tight, pressed my cheek against his hair. I felt his breath hitch again, his hands clutching the fabric of the dress like a lifeline. "I'm sorry," he said, words tumbling out rough. "I'm so sorry. This is stupid. I don't know why I—" "Stop," I said gently but firmly. "Nothing about you crying in my arms is stupid." He let out another sob that sounded like years. "I didn't mean to," he choked. "I didn't mean to do this here. I thought I could just try it and be normal about it, and—" I pulled back enough to look at him. His eyes were glossy, terrified. Tell me, I said. Just tell me what's happening. He shook his head so fast it looked like panic. You're going to leave, he whispered. My heart squeezed. Liam, I never told you, he rushed on, voice cracking. I never brought it up because I didn't want you to see me differently. I didn't want to ruin everything, but he swallowed hard. I cross-dress. I've always wanted to. Like, not as a joke, not as a costume. I want silk, pantyhose, underwear, dresses. I don't even understand why, and I hate that I want it, and I've tried to stop, and I'm ashamed, and he started to ramble, a frantic river. I'm sorry. I would understand if you wanted to break up. I'll throw everything away. I didn't let him finish. I reached up, cupped his face with both hands, and kissed him. Slow, deliberate. The kind of kiss that says, I'm here. Not a peck, not a consolation prize. A real kiss, full of certainty. He froze for a second like he couldn't process it, then melted into it with a shaky exhale. When I pulled back, I kept my forehead close to his. I'm not breaking up with you, I said. Do you hear me? I'm not leaving. He blinked, stunned. But I don't care, I said, and I watched his face like a hawk to make sure he heard the right meaning. I mean, I care that you've been carrying shame. I care that it hurts you, but the fact that you like to dress feminine sometimes, that doesn't bother me. He looked at me like I'd started speaking another language. You're just saying that, he whispered. No, I said. I'm telling you the truth, and I'll prove it. His breath came shallow. Tara. I held his face steady. Listen to me. Before I got married the first time, I dated men and women. I've been around enough to know that gender expression isn't a moral failing, and I'm open-minded, truly. GGG, if you want the shorthand. I gave him a tiny smile because humor can be an anchor. You don't have to be ashamed with me. His eyes filled again, but this time it was different. Less panic, more relief fighting its way through. You're not disgusted? Not even a little, I said. I'm honored you told me. He let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. His fingers tightened around the dress. Okay, I said, shifting into practical mode, because sometimes love looks like logistics. Do you want to try it on, or do you want to leave and do this at home? He stared at the dress like it might vanish. I want to, he whispered. I want to try. Then let's do it, I said. But only if you feel safe. If at any point you don't, we stop. He nodded, small. I stepped back, gave him space, turned slightly toward the corner like a respectful bouncer. I'm going to look away for a minute, I said. Tell me when you're ready. There was the rustle of fabric then, the soft slide of something being pulled over skin. My heart was pounding, not with shock, but with this fierce tenderness that made my throat tight. When he said, okay, his voice was trembling but steadier. I turned. Liam stood in the dress, the satin catching the dressing room light. It wasn't tailored to him, of course, but it still looked right in a way that startled me. Not because it made him look like a woman, but because it made him look like he'd stepped into something he'd been longing for. His shoulders were still tense, braced for impact, but his eyes were wide and alive. He swallowed. I look ridiculous. You look like you, I said softly, and you look brave. His mouth opened, then closed, like he didn't know where to put the emotion. I stepped closer and touched the fabric at his waist. How does it feel? I asked. He closed his eyes for a second. He exhaled, shaking. Like I've wanted this forever. Something broke open in me then, not jealousy, not insecurity, but the sheer weight of realizing how long he'd been alone with this. I pulled him into my arms again, careful of the dress, and kissed his temple. We're going to get you what you want, I promised. Not in secret, not in shame. He looked at me like I was offering him air. Here? He asked, voice barely there. Here, I said, and my tone was so certain it surprised even me. If you want. He hesitated, then nodded. Okay, he whispered. So we did it, right there, like we were choosing a new truth in the middle of a normal day. We went back out into the store. Liam changed back into his clothes, but he walked differently now, still nervous, yes, but also like he'd crossed a line and couldn't uncross it. I took his hand. I didn't let go. We picked out underwear first because I wanted him to have something that felt like his, not borrowed from my imagination. We chose soft, simple panties. Nothing cartoonish, nothing that felt like a costume. Then sheer black pantyhose. He held the package like it was sacred and terrifying. Is this too much? He asked, eyes flicking around like strangers could read his mind. It's exactly what you want, I said. That's the point. We grabbed a couple silk blouses, a skirt that would actually fit, a dress that had enough stretch to feel comfortable, another dress in a deep jewel tone that made his eyes brighten when he touched it. Then heels, 2 pairs, because he kept reaching for them and then yanking his hand back like he wasn't allowed. I made him pick 1 pair he loved and 1 pair he could practice in. At the register, he looked like he might bolt. I leaned in and murmured, "Breathe. You're buying clothes. That's it." He nodded, swallowed, and paid. In the car, the bag sat between us like a new universe. Liam stared out the window, quiet. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded, then shook his head, then laughed once, breathless. "I don't know," he admitted. "I feel like I'm dreaming." "Me too," I said, and meant it. When we got home, I set the bags on the bed like a display and turned to him with my hands on my hips. "Okay," I announced. "I'm demanding a fashion show." His eyes widened. "Tara?" "Try-on haul," I insisted, grinning. "You don't get to buy all this and then fold it into a drawer like it's contraband." His mouth twitched like he was fighting a smile. "I don't know if I can." "Yes, you can," I said, softer now. "And you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do it honestly." He swallowed. "You'd do my makeup?" he asked, voice small, like it was the most daring request in the world. My heart melted. "I would love to," I said. "And we can order a wig if you want. Or not. Whatever feels right." Something lit in him again, that same brightness from the kitchen when I'd joked weeks earlier. "A wig," he repeated, almost laughing in disbelief. "Really?" "Really," I said. "But first, wine." We opened a bottle, poured 2 glasses, and I handed him one like we were celebrating something, because we were. "Go shower," I said. "Shave your legs if you want. Take your time. No rush." He stared at me like I was handing him permission on a silver platter, then nodded and disappeared into the bathroom. While he was gone, I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to feel my own feelings honestly. There was surprise, yes. There was the faint echo of cultural conditioning whispering, "What is this?" But louder than that was something steadier. Love. This wasn't a stranger. This was Liam, the man who made pancakes for Sammy on Saturday mornings, who listened to me vent about work without trying to fix me, who held my hand when I drove past the house I used to share with my ex, and my stomach turned. If anything, this felt like finding out the person you love has been hungry and you have food. He came out of the bathroom in a towel, cheeks pink, damp hair brushed back. He looked nervous again, like the reality was setting in. "Ready?" I asked gently. He nodded, then took a deep breath and went to the bag. When he emerged from the bedroom a few minutes later, he was wearing the panties, the pantyhose, a simple black dress, and the practice heels. His posture was cautious, shoulders slightly hunched like he expected laughter. But his face looked softer, unburdened in tiny increments. I clapped my hands once. "Okay," I said, trying to keep it playful so he wouldn't drown in seriousness. "Come sit. Let me see you." He perched on the chair by the dresser like he didn't trust gravity. I opened my makeup bag and started with the basics: primer, concealer, a little contour to soften the angles without trying to erase him. I asked before every step, "Is this okay? Do you like this? Too much?" His answers were quiet at first, then more sure as he realized I meant it. As we sipped wine and I blended eyeshadow, he started talking in a voice I'd never heard from him, raw, relieved, almost angry at the years he'd lost. "I used to steal moments," he admitted, staring at himself in the mirror while I worked. "Like 5 minutes when I was alone. I'd buy something and hide it. I'd wear it and then hate myself after. I'd tell myself I'd stop. I'd throw things away. Then I'd want it again. It felt torturous." My chest tightened. "Oh, Liam," I murmured. "I told myself if I loved you enough," he said, voice breaking a little, "it would go away. And it didn't. And then I thought that meant I was lying to you." I paused, hands resting lightly on his shoulders. "You're not lying," I said. "You're human. You're allowed to be complex." He swallowed hard. "It doesn't mean I don't feel like a man," he rushed to add, like he needed to protect something. "I do. I'm comfortable. It's just, sometimes I want to be soft." "I know," I said, and I meant it with my whole body. "And softness is allowed." When I finished, I turned him toward the mirror fully. His eyes widened. The makeup wasn't theatrical, it was polished, a version of him that looked intentional. His lips parted. "I look," he whispered. "Beautiful," I said simply. He stared at himself like he was seeing a door open. Then his shoulders shook once, but he didn't fall apart this time. He smiled, small, tremulous, real. "I can't believe you're doing this," he said, voice thick. "I can't believe you've been alone with it," I replied. "But you're not alone anymore. We did the fashion show. We made it ridiculous and sweet." He tried on the jewel-toned dress and spun once, laughing in surprise at the movement of the skirt. He practiced walking in the heels, wobbling and then getting steadier, and when he finally managed a confident stride across the bedroom, he threw his hands up like he'd won an Olympic medal. I cheered like an idiot. At some point, he asked quietly if we could keep it just ours for now, private, safe. I told him yes, absolutely, that this wasn't about forcing him into the world before he was ready. Consent works in every direction. Later, when we were curled up together on the bed, his head on my shoulder, he said, "I thought you'd see me differently." "I do," I admitted. He tensed. I kissed his forehead. "I see you more," I said. "That's the difference." After that night, something shifted in our house, like a window cracked open. Liam didn't become a different person. He became a less scared one. We started having dress-up nights a few times a week, not because it was a gimmick, but because it was joy. We'd wait until Sammy was asleep, the house quiet, the day's obligations finally done. Liam would ask, "Is tonight a night?" with this hopeful little smile that made me feel protective and amused at the same time. Sometimes he'd dress up while I cooked a late snack. Sometimes we'd pick an outfit together, like we were planning a date. We ordered a wig online, and when it arrived, we both laughed so hard we nearly cried because it looked absurd until we styled it. And then suddenly, it looked right. The intimacy that followed those nights wasn't about theatrics. It was about closeness, about being trusted. We kept it non-graphic, tender, grounded in the fact that he was still Liam and I was still Tara. And we were still two people who'd survived divorces and disappointment and were choosing each other anyway. If anything, the sexiness was in the confidence blooming in him, in how he'd look at me after I'd done his eyeliner and say, "Do you really like this?" And I'd say, "I really like you," and mean all of it. He started to relax enough to talk about the future, not just vague, someday talk, but real, practical things. How to keep this part of him safe in a world that can be cruel. How to talk about it with a therapist if he wanted to untangle the shame. how to set boundaries so it never felt like a secret affair inside our relationship, but a shared part of it. I told him over and over that he didn't have to earn acceptance from me by being perfect. He just had to be honest. One night, weeks after the shopping trip, Liam stood in the bedroom doorway in a silk blouse and skirt, hair in the wig, makeup softened, and he looked at me with a calm I hadn't seen yet. "I'm happy," he said, like he was testing the word. I set down my wine glass. "You are," I agreed. He nodded slowly. I didn't think I was allowed to be. I crossed the room and put my hands on his waist. "You are," I said, "and I'm not letting you forget it." He leaned his forehead against mine. "You make me feel safe," he whispered. I swallowed past a sudden ache. "You've made me feel safe for 3 years," I said. "Let me return the favor." It's funny. People think the big test of a relationship is drama, cheating, screaming fights, betrayal. But sometimes the real test is tenderness. Sometimes the real test is whether you can hold someone's truth without trying to reshape it into something easier to explain at brunch. I don't know what Liam will want 6 months from now or 6 years from now. Maybe he'll always want it private. Maybe one day he'll want to go out dressed up for a Halloween party and feel the air on his legs without fear. Maybe he'll find language for this that fits him perfectly, or maybe he won't care about labels at all. What I do know is this: the day I took him shopping as a joke ended up being the day he stopped holding his breath. And me? I'm not scared of it. If anything, I feel closer to him than I ever thought possible. There's something deeply intimate about being the person someone trusts when they're most vulnerable. It doesn't make him less of a man. It makes him more of a whole person. It makes me love him harder. Sometimes when Sammy is at school and the house is quiet, I'll catch Liam humming while he folds laundry, and I'll think about the fitting room, the sobbing, the dress in his hands like a confession, and I'll feel this fierce pride that we didn't let that moment become a fracture. We turned it into a doorway. And yes, I'm going to say it plainly because I've earned plainness at 42. I want to marry him. Not in spite of this. Not because of it. Just with it included, like any other truth you build a life around. I want the version of us that keeps choosing honesty over fear, softness over shame, connection over performance. I want the kind of home where a person can ask for a dressing room and find love waiting on the other side of the door.